Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tucson. Can you believe we are now heading into our third virtual meeting during this COVID-19 crisis for the Rotary Club of Tucson? As difficult as it is to comprehend all that's happened recently, it's also hard to believe that an entire month has already flown by. Trust me, stay strong out there. This will be over soon. I really hope you enjoyed our meeting last week, aptly titled the Rotary In-Home Concert Series, and a special thanks and shout out to Chris Dodge, our very own talented musician and fellow Rotarian. He and his musical team really hit it out of the park. Thank you so much. Again, Rotarians, don't be afraid to tell us what you like and you don't like about these virtual meetings. We can be pretty nimble with the content of what we're telling you each week. Remember this, I'm not really all that concerned about finishing each of these meetings at 1:20 p.m. anymore. No constraints, no looking at the clock. As Martin Luther King said, free at last, free at last. I love the freedom. So now, seriously, what's the latest in the coronavirus world? The US death toll just surpassed 10,000. Can you believe this? 10,000 people over the past month. And the number is only going to go much higher. New York seems to think they may be near the top of the curve, so let's just cross our fingers for that hot spot. They have been to hell and back the past few weeks, no doubt. Italy and Spain are also showing signs of a slowing spread, so let's just hope for their sake. And then across the pond, England Prime Minister Boris Johnson was admitted to the ICU yesterday. And everyone is cautiously watching his progress. And then Prince Charles, heir to the throne in England, recently tested positive. To Margaret Higgins and all of our friends from England, we are thinking of you right now. Think of all the famous people who have tested positive. Tom Hanks, Sean Payton, head coach of the New Orleans Saints, CNN news anchor Chris Cuomo, opera singer Placido Domingo, NBA star Kevin Durant, Prince Albert of Monaco, and on and on and on. This is touching everyone. It's incredible. But what about the Rotary Club of Tucson? Thankfully, the numbers in Pima County are still relatively low, and I believe we are still safe with 0 positive from club members so far. Let's just hope that continues. But since so many of our members are following the stay-at-home orders, I've had a number of Rotarians reach out to ask me, what are we doing as a club during this crisis? So I wanted to let you know I have a couple of ideas I'm chasing down right now, and one of them might be an offshoot of a project happening right now in Rotary District 5320 in Los Angeles. So I want to show this new news story on their CBS affiliate in Los Angeles.
Rotary Club members came together today to assemble masks for medical workers. CBS 2's Tom Waite has more.
This volunteer assembly line inside an Anaheim hotel is another sign of the times and our new reality.
This is the mask that we're making.
Mark Ahrens is with Rotary District 5320, along with Wincombe Hospitality. These volunteers are putting together 30,000 medical face masks to help frontline medical workers.
A medical shield and a strap to go around your head, and it protects your entire front of your face.
Aaron says he and his fellow volunteers know that during this outbreak, so many medical workers are putting their own lives on the line, and with a shortage of personal protective equipment or PPE, these volunteers know time is of the essence.
With what's going on in the world right now, we felt that we needed to help with the PPE for some of the healthcare workers as much as we could.
Like everyone else, these volunteers are mostly staying at home. The opportunity to come out and help was a welcomed break from the stress of isolation.
You know, I don't have to be by myself, and it's pretty cool.
Melanie Donegan works for Fullerton College. She says since the outbreak, life has become much more solitary.
It's hard, you know, being at home, and then I just went back to work. I work in the ceramic studio, and It's odd without students, and I miss them.
Rotary volunteers gathered at 5 locations across Orange County on Saturday, and they plan to do it again next weekend. Tom Waite, CBS 2 News.
So who knows? Maybe our club could do the very same thing at the DoubleTree. But we need to find out what the need actually is in our community. Or maybe we ship them to a place that is desperate for these PPE materials. If you have any ideas on how our club can be a leader in helping out right now, I'm all ears. Give me a call and let's talk it through. All right, so enough of the coronavirus, don't you think? Let's review briefly what we'll be covering today in our Rotary meeting. First of all, we have another fantastic keynote speaker in Dr. Terry Hunt. He's the Dean of the Honors College at the University of Arizona. Dr. Hunt is known and world-renowned for his work on the movement of the Moai statues on Easter Island. He's been featured on National Geographic and the Smithsonian. It will be a fascinating talk. And again, we have more birthdays, just like last week, another inspirational Steve Hartman video, and then finally, in the spirit of having fun, one of my goals, I have asked our resident Rotary stand-up comedian, Jerry Sullivan, to report to us on the coronavirus pandemic. He's sure to make you groan, and all with a perfectly straight face. So today, again, sit back in your chair at home, or if you're at work, sneak away to your computer and spend an hour with us in the Rotary Club of Tucson. Turn off the news cycle and enter the positive world of Rotary. We have a fantastic program prepared, and then remember, we are the Rotary Club of Tucson. Well, I found another great Pledge of Allegiance video. Thank you to Sunnyside School District from last week. And I was thinking about, our club itself. I don't know if we've ever had to accommodate for the hearing impaired at one of our meetings. But today, we recognize all those people out there dealing with all sorts of special situations, including the hearing impaired. So please recognize and appreciate the Pledge of Allegiance done in American Sign Language.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So in finding a patriotic song today, I found one from nearly 50 years ago. And this was God Bless America, performed on the Ed Sullivan Show on May 6, 1968. And Irving Berlin was singing the God Bless America, and behind him was a bunch of scouts. On the left, Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, and on the right, Girl Scouts and Brownies. Just take a moment, though, when you watch this video, and you'll see the date. May 6, 1968, when this was recorded. And that year, what happened in January was the Tet Offensive, where 56 million TV viewers were seeing the Vietnam War come into their living room. March 16, the My Lai Massacre. April 4th, Martin Luther King was assassinated. April 11th, Lyndon Baines Johnson, our president, signs the Civil Rights Act. And then after this performance, June 6, Robert Kennedy was killed. And then later in the summer, August 26, there were riots in Chicago during the Democratic National Convention. If you lived during that year, you'll remember those things vividly. So watch this performance of God Bless America and think about what the world was like around them at the time. So enjoy.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Well, that was really powerful. I hope you enjoyed the patriotic song. And today's inspiration video, again, is from my favorite guy, Steve Hartman from CBS News On the Road. And the title is The Swimmer Who Could Not Swim. And the theme in this video is not being afraid to fail. And so I want you to watch this, and he has a very, very educational moment during this piece. And don't forget his moving quote. And trust me, you'll know it when you see it. So enjoy.
Tonight, Steve Hartman does a deep dive and finds the key to success on the road.
They were the bad news bears of swimming.
Y'all are on 2 minutes.
In fact, Coach Alex Wiedemann of Seguin High School in Arlington, Texas, says you can't overstate their underachievement.
Our goal every meet was to finish the race.
Just get across the pool?
Get across the pool. Really, we measured our success on not getting disqualified.
And because that was the standard, 4 years ago, Gerald Hodges made the team. Perhaps the only kid to ever make a high school swim team without a clue how to swim.
We had to get anybody. It didn't matter.
He didn't know how to swim.
He couldn't get across 5 yards, let alone 25 yards.
Was there really nobody better?
No.
Come on, Gerald. Come on, Gerald.
Eventually, he at least learned how to not drown and even finished some races, albeit long after the other competitors were done and toweled off.
Push it, come on.
Yes, he was that bad, which is interesting, because on dry land, Gerald is a remarkable athlete.
Could you have made the basketball team?
I think so.
Could you have made the football team?
I'm pretty sure.
Soccer team?
Pretty positive.
So why swimming?
I felt like if I couldn't handle not being good at something, then how could I consider myself, a successful person?
That quote bears repeating. If I couldn't handle not being good at something, then how could I consider myself a successful person? To Gerald, setting yourself up for failure is actually the key to future success, especially if you can somehow manage to master your weakness. And by the start of his senior year, Gerald had actually improved a lot.
But no one really knew how much he'd improved until a big regional meet earlier this year. It was the 200-yard medley relay. Top 2 teams qualify for state. And as usual, Seguin was pretty much in last place with 50 yards to go. And that's when Gerald jumped in the water.
Keep in mind, at this level, making up any significant time is nearly impossible. Unless maybe you've got something to prove. Unless, maybe, there's an extra drive deep within anyone who knows what it's like to be dismissed. Whatever it was, the kid who couldn't swim just sent his team to state.
Man, we was ecstatic. I could barely contain my energy as I was trying to go get this medal. I'm sitting here just freaking out.
You're having a hard time now.
Yes, I was like, I've come so far.
From now on, Whenever you think anything is impossible, think of Gerald. Whenever you think America has lost its heart, think of Gerald. Steve Hartman, on the road in Arlington, Texas.
Oh, baby, that is awesome.
Well, fellow Rotarians, it's that time to see who is watching out there in the blogosphere. And Jeannie Flower will be providing that intro for us shortly. But you should know that our meetings are actually being seen worldwide. And we have people from all over the world today watching today's meeting. And we actually have a very small studio audience here at Film Creations. And some VIP guests have actually come to see our Rotary meeting. So I think you should be proud of what's happening here. So let me introduce Jeannie Flower. Special thanks to her and what she's doing at Commerce Bank. She's supporting all of her small business owners as they apply for the CARES Act and the Payroll Protection Plan. They're working tirelessly to take care of our small business community. She really, truly loves being a Rotarian. So ladies and gentlemen, Rotarians, please welcome Jeannie Flower.
Thanks, President Bob. We welcome Assistant District 5500 Governor Anita McDonald. Also with us from Portland, Oregon is virtual mastermind guru and the author of The Connector's Way, Patrick Galvin. Rotary leadership from California is still on board with us. They have shared many great ideas that they are using to help members stay connected. Again, we welcome club presidents from Long Beach, San Diego, and Los Angeles. My fellow Rotarians have done a great job bringing new faces to our meetings. When I call your names, please stand up and let us see your colorful new masks. Drew Vactor gets another check mark for perfect attendance. His guest is Larry Potter. Past President Mike Anderson celebrates a big birthday this week. Family members are here to help celebrate, like Susan, Zach, Dana, Levi, Miles, Madeline, and Micah. Andy, Addison, Easton, Kristen, Dan, Willie, and Lorelei. Big family. Glad you're here. Jerry Sullivan brought a distinguished guest who stands as leader in global polio eradication. Jerry's guest today is Bill Gates. And Wayne Pete has a guest today. His guest is Lynn Struthers, MD. John Wong brought his wife Noreen. They decided to dress up as they did on their wedding day 44 years ago. And then Noreen quickly changed back into her fashion of the day. Hugh Thompson's guest may have shown up this week. If he is at your table, be sure to give a Rotary welcome to Dr. Mel Roberts. Brett Stein has a house full of guests, including his wife, Holly Stein, and their kiddos, Addie, Aves, and Ayla. You can sit down now, kids. Vicki Jacobs' guest has already applied for membership, Tom Scott. Rob Lemaster has a guest, Denise Waters. Margaret Higgins has a guest she brought in straight from the beaches of Australia. Margaret's guest today is Bradley Cooper. And I have a few guests too. Two soon-to-be new members, Anna Roughton and Nicole Lombardo-Kimbrell, as well as Rondo's wife, Tiana, and my friends Wendy Bradshaw, Jill Bowman, Tina Steele, and Leslie Pinter. We're thrilled to have all of you join us. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tucson.
And ladies and gentlemen, Rotarians, we're time for our program. And again, I told you we have a wonderful program with Dr. Terry Hunt from the University of Arizona. And as we always do at our meetings, we do have a video introduction narrated by Matt Russell. So let's just go to that right now.
Dr. Terry Hunt is Dean of the U of A Honors College and Professor of Anthropology in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Dr. Hunt earned his bachelor's degree at the University of Hawaii in 1976, his master's degree at the University of Auckland, New Zealand in 1980, and his PhD in 1989 from the University of Washington. Dr. Hunt previously served as Dean of the Robert D. Clark Honors College at the University of Oregon, where he helped the college secure a top 10 ranking by Public University Honors. Dr. Hunt has led study abroad courses for the past 18 years to Rapa Nui, otherwise known as Easter Island, and he is one of the world's foremost experts on the human and environmental histories of the Pacific Islands, where he has conducted field research for more than 4 decades. In September of 2017, he was named Dean of the U of A Honors College. Dr. Hunt is the author of The Statues That Walked, Unraveling the Mystery of Easter Island, and his research was the focus of a National Geographic magazine cover story and a nationally televised TV documentary in 2012. Let's have a warm Rotary welcome for Dr. Jerry Hunt.
Greetings and thank you to Rotary Club of Tucson for the invitation. Thank you to Bob Logan for inviting me specifically. It's a pleasure to share with you our approximately 20 years of research on Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as I will often refer to it, the native name for the island. Well, Rapa Nui has really caught the intrigue of people for centuries. It is a very small island. It is a very remote island, as you see in this slide. It is about 2,500 miles from the coast of Chile. It's another 2,500 miles to the island of Tahiti in French Polynesia. It is truly remote. And as you can see in this Google Earth image, it is also very small. It's about 10 miles by 6 miles, and as you can see in this aerial view of the island, you can see the whole island here. It's also fairly low, and most of it does not have forest, but in fact grassland. The island, of course, is famous for nearly 1,000 giant statues. Giant statues that were carved mostly from a single quarry and then taken to every part of the island. These multi-ton statues were erected on platforms known as ahu, and so they had to be transported and then raised onto the platforms where they were displayed. Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, really presents a paradox because it is a small island with very few resources. It is very remote, had a relatively small population, and yet nearly 1,000 statues were carved, nearly 600 of them were transported for display, and some of them even had multi-ton hats put on top of the statues, as you can see in this slide. These giant statues on this small, remote, and impoverished island have perplexed visitors for years. Well, as I mentioned, we've been working on the island about 20 years, and one of the remaining mysteries has always been, how were these giant statues transported? The other kind of underlying mystery is, why did people engage in this kind of activity? Well, my colleague Carl Lippo and I, as we began work on the island, we promised each other that we would never research the transport of the statues. We felt like it was really in the domain of kind of the crazy, as you see in this slide. We were not going to engage in pseudoscience or wild speculation. We thought that we should focus on things where we would actually know the answer. So, committed to not studying how the statues were transported, let me give you some background. In the 1950s, 1955 to be precise, Thor Heyerdahl brought a team of researchers to Easter Island, and they conducted a lot of research. And Heyerdahl, of course, like other researchers and visitors, was interested in how these multi-ton statues were transported to every corner of the island. He proposed a sled-like device, like you see in this photo from the 1950s, that statues would be placed in a horizontal position and then sort of dragged with ropes over a rather rough landscape. By the 1980s, a Czech engineer named Pavel had experimented with kind of levering the statues, again in a horizontal position, levering over logs, rolling them. And they were able to move a statue facsimile a little bit. And they could also demonstrate that leverage using poles does work a little bit. By the 1990s, as you can see here, you have kind of a hybrid of Heyerdahl's sled placed on top of rolling logs to provide the motion for the sled over the landscape. So sort of 2 or 3 layers. And again, the statue is moving in a horizontal position. Well, again, we're not going to study this. We are just going to focus on the kinds of things where we can come to conclusions that we're comfortable with in terms of science. Well, over the years, we began work on the island with students from, I was at University of Hawaii, and then before coming to Arizona, I was at University of Oregon. And I took students every season along with my colleague, and we did lots of field work on the island. And one of our projects was to document the nearly 1,000 statues found all around the island. We used high-precision GPS and located and described and analyzed nearly 1,000 statues. In this slide, you see a high-precision GPS unit with a statue, and then we had a recording protocol that would give us a large database with many details for the statues. This detailed recording of the statues allowed us, with a few years of field work, to create the map that you see in this slide. This map shows you the blue triangles that are about a little more than 400 statues in the quarry. I'll show you some slides of that in a minute, in various stages of completion. The red stars are about 60 statues that are found along the roadways. And then the green circles are more than 500 statues that are found throughout the island. Many of them have been transported to locations where they were or are on display on the massive stone platforms known as ahu. So you can see in this distribution, they really are all over the island. Some transported up to, depending on the routes they took, about perhaps as much as 12 to 16 miles. Also, with the red stars in this slide, you can see some dashed lines. Those are the remnants of ancient roads that we can see from satellite images and mapped. And you can see that near the center of the island, they're truncated. And what happens is the ancient roadways run right into modern agricultural fields. And so plowing for corn or watermelon kind of ruins the ancient archaeology, as you can imagine. Well, let me show you kind of the sequence of statue production and the evidence of transport that we were looking at. This is the statue quarry at Ranoraraku. It is a volcanic cinder cone comprised of welded tuff. The volcano is exploding, and as it extrudes the ejecta from the eruption, it welds back onto itself and creates kind of a conglomerate stone that's actually fairly soft. Welded, the constituent parts are welded back to one another, and it forms that fairly soft stone that could be used to carve. You can see in this slide the cinder cone has areas of that have been worked to extract statues, and then on the slopes you see statues standing along the base of the steep precipice there. These are statues that were carved out of the bedrock, brought down the slope, and it's the reason why people talk about the heads of Easter Island when they're not actually heads, they're bodies or torsos. Here's, in this slide, you can see a relatively small statue being carved right out of the bedrock. You can see on the left there, you can see the chin and the nose and the long ears. Here's another view, a kind of like an Escher print of statues being carved out every which way out of the bedrock. And you can see above the profile of the statue in the back, the carving right into the bedrock to remove the statue. Here's another view in the quarry of statue being carved right out of the bedrock. So you can imagine the amount of work And here from a drone shot, we do a lot of our work now with mapping with drones and making 3D models. If you look closely near the upper left of the area where stone is being extracted, there is about a 60-foot tall statue laying in the bedrock, one of the largest statues on the island. This was never transported, but there you get a view of statues being carved out of the bedrock. The statues were carved with simple, dense basalt hand axes like these in this slide. Nothing fancy, but something that was harder than the soft stone, could be held in the hand and used to work the rock of the quarry to create statues. So to sum up the actions in the quarry, you can see here, A is what happens when the stone is being carved in the quarry to create the statue. The statue is left on a keel, and the keel is the last thing to be removed, and the statue is, using gravity, is slid down the slope, as you see in B, and it goes from a horizontal position to an upright position for the first time. As you see in B, where it's now standing in an upright position. C is what would happen when the statue is moved out of the quarry in an upright position. And you notice there that on the slope, it's been brought down into a pit to bring it upright. And what you have to do on the pit is open up the front of that pit and you can move it out, so that there's no trying to maneuver it out of the pit. You simply open the front and move it on out. D in this slide, again, is why people call them heads. D is what happens when your statue's in a pit, the project's never finished, the pit naturally fills in, and you have a head poking out of the slopes of the quarry, like you saw on the previous slide. So C in this shows a vertical position, and I'll show you a little more about that in a minute. Along the roadways, as you see here, this is a drone shot, a pretty large statue face down, and there's my co-author and colleague in the upper right of the slide for scale. You can see how big that statue is. And we see many of these face down. In this slide, we see a statue face down, and the head is broken, an important clue. Also see the size of that, and it's coming right out of the slopes of the quarry there. Well, we noticed some interesting evidence from these statues. The statues are called moai, and so we'll talk about the moai roads here. We see breakage patterns in these statues on the transport roads, and many of them are broken, and the piece that broke, say from the neck or part of the head or at the shoulders, can be a few feet away from the body. Now, that provides an interesting clue, because if you are moving a multi-ton statue on its back in a horizontal position, how on earth did it get face down with a piece broken off a few feet away? You're already thinking, well, wait a minute, that sounds like it fell from a vertical position and the piece that broke bounced a little bit away from the body, something that would not happen moving it on rollers. And you can see two examples here. The other thing that we see on the moai roads is something very interesting that you notice kind of slowly, and that is that when statues are on the roadways, let me just put it that way first, we notice that their position going uphill on the road is on their back. Downhill, downslope on the ancient roads, the statues are on their face down, on their backs. And you begin to say, now, wait a minute, why is the statue's position face down or on their backs strongly associated, and can be statistically shown to be strongly associated with slope? That begins to point to the conclusion that these statues were being moved in a vertical position, and the slope they fell on is in relation to the direction that they're going and where the gravity would have taken them. So to sum up on that, here's a graph. Statues going downhill on these prepared roads, face down, going uphill on their backs. And you can see in this slide, we're also illustrating areas of construction on the statue roads. Now, the statues then have to get to a platform. Many of these are along the majority of them are along the coast. They have to be moved up onto a platform, some of them several feet tall, turned around to then face back, usually from the direction from which they came. The statues face the communities who erected them. They are not facing out to sea. They are really deified ancestors, and so they look at the community who has deified them. Now, as we were working on this, and remember, we were not going to study Moai transport, we were documenting the details of the roads and the statues on them, and this evidence began to accumulate, and we kept saying, maybe we shouldn't be looking at this, but here we go. We noticed something kind of surprising, and something that other archaeologists had never made note of, and that was that the statues on the roads, that is, those that were undergoing transport and had been left in transport, were different from the statues that were found on the platforms. And in this slide, the differences are shown. The road moai have not had their eyes carved. The road moai have a lower center of gravity, usually in the lower half to lower third of the statue. And quite importantly, the base of the road moai, or the moai being transported, have a forward lean of usually around 15 degrees. So if you wanted to stand a moai up that was found lying next to an ancient road, it probably would not stand up. And I'll show you how we realize this. The distinction then is that the moai that have reached the final platforms, or ahu, for their display, have a flattened base so that they stand straight up. The center of gravity has been moved. Of course, you can't add stone to this, but you can subtract stone by removing part of the lower part of the carving of the statue, shifting the center of the gravity upwards, and then carving the eyes. So these differences mark moai that are ready and are on display versus moai that are being transported. In this slide, you can sort of see the cartoon version of the road moai, heavier toward the bottom, forward leaning, no eye sockets carved. And then to the right, the ahu, or platform moai, the base has been flattened. The weight has been taken out of the lower part of the statue, so it goes from kind of bowling pin shape to slimmer, and then the eyes have been carved. Well, this is what we knew as we were writing our book, The Statues That Walked. And originally, Carl and I did not want to write a chapter about how the statues were transported. We had refused to kind of delve into that, and we were talking with our great editor, and she said to us, if you're writing a book about Easter Island, you have to write a chapter about how the statues were transported. You can't leave that stone unturned. And we said, yeah, we don't know how they were transported, so we're not going to write about it. And she said, you guys need to figure it out. And so we figured it out. Now, what I want to share with you is that what I just showed you was what we figured out and is what is reflected in the book. And we said the statues were moved into vertical position by all the field evidence of the statues found along the roads, the way they're broken, etc., what I've just described to you. And the title of the book, The Statues That Walked, is because if you ask the islanders how were the statues transported, they have a very simple answer. And that answer is they walked. The statues walked. And archaeologists and visitors and other scientists have always sort of thought, well, that's an interesting metaphor. It's sort of a quaint view of things. And the attitude has often been, we'll figure out how it really happened. And we, on the one hand, we could take the islanders' word and just say, hey, they walked, end of story. But in science, we have to figure out independently and also how. What does walking mean? And so what I showed you is what we knew. And then as the book was coming out in publication form, we were talking with National Geographic about a documentary. And National Geographic wanted us to address the walking as well. And we had shared with National Geographic what you see in this slide, of using structure for motion software to make 3D models that we can manipulate on our computer. But of course, 3D models on the computer can also be printed as 3D models in physical form. And you see here that you can take thousands of photographs, convert those photographs into data points, a data cloud, and then into 3D modeling as you see here. Here's an example of a real statue 3D model on the computer screen. This is how we could originally study center of gravity, the forward lean on the base, etc. And we could really study moai shape and form in a virtual way. Here's another view. You can see the forward lean of the statue. Well, an engineer at University of Washington contacted us and had looked at the 3D models we'd put online at this point. And he said, "Can I use your data? Can I use the photographs?" And we said, "Sure, what are you going to do?" And he said, "My students are going to use 3D printing and print some little moai, some statues from your photos, and it'll be an engineering lab exercise." And we said, "Oh, sure, can you send us some?" So we had little moais on our desk that were printed at University of Washington. And we told National Geographic about this. We showed them the models in some of our conference calls. And they said, "Wow, if you can use 3D modeling and print a little moai to put on your desk, how about we print a giant moai or a mold for a giant moai, and you guys show us in a TV documentary how these multi-ton statues were moved." And we said, no, we're not going to do that. We don't know how to do that. Read the book. We've shown you that the evidence points to vertical movement, that horizontal movement is not correct, doesn't fit the evidence. And they said, "Well, that's not interesting TV. We want to sort of combine research with reality TV." And we kept saying no, and then they doubled and tripled our grant, and we started to realize, okay, we're being bought. I guess we'll give in and do this. And we were very nervous about it. And as you see here, even before the conversations were over, as we were telling them no, National Geographic had a mold made with some engineers in Washington State, and they began to make a moai replica, perfect moai replica, and you can see it being hatched here out of the mold in northern Washington State, and then it was shipped to Hawaii for filming, and here it is out of the crate. It is a perfect millimeter by millimeter replica of a real road moai, one that had been in transport and abandoned in ancient times. Well, in this slide, you can see, here's me and Carl. We named the moai replica Hotu Iti in honor of the first Polynesian voyager to the island, the discoverer of the island. He's 3 meters, about almost 10 feet tall, 5 tons, and the concrete has been modified with styrofoam so that it reflects the specific gravity, the density of the volcanic tuff that the statues are made of. So we've made the best replica we could. And I often point out to folks that this is not our statue, this is not our replica, it's a perfect replica of their statue. And that's important because they did the design, we just borrowed it for experimentation purposes. Well, let me show you what happened. We had some honors students from the University of Hawaii, where I was working at the time, and with National Geographic cameras rolling, we tried with a minimum of ropes how to move the statue in a vertical upright position.
Safety rigging attached to the statue, Hunt and Lippo finally had the chance to test their walking theory.
Starting out with Team A, I want you to pull just the harder you keep it constant. See if we can rock it a little bit. Ooh. 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 Okay, hold it. Let's see how we're going. I want you guys to spread out a little more so that you're holding it, but more at an angle. Does this get harder or it's about the same? Easier? Easier at this angle? I want you to pull Team A to pull to see what happens. Pull. Okay. All right, hold. How's that? You guys exhausted? Okay.
The teams continue to move farther and farther apart, simultaneously pulling and trying to twist the statue. But it's just not working.
But it's just not working. 2 ropes did not work. We were only able, as you can see in the video, we were only able to sort of wiggle the statue. And we wanted to start with a minimum rather than, putting 10 ropes on there. Let's see what the minimum is and work up to see what we need to get the statue into motion in a vertical position. We had 2 days to film with National Geographic. It was all constrained by budget and a hydraulic crane and travel schedules and everything, thousands of dollars at stake. And on day 2, literally with 45 minutes left and lots of interesting problem-solving efforts and teamwork, let me share with you what happened. Now, 3 ropes, 1 in the back, 1 on each side. Okay, that is walking. 1 rope in the back, 1 rope on each side, and the people on the sides get the statue rocking to create a pendulum effect. The people in the back are letting the statue fall forward slightly, and the center of gravity shifts from side to side with a controlled fall forward, exactly how we describe walking in human physiology or in physics. This was incredible. It was the most amazing moment of my life. It still counts as that. And we saw this multi-ton statue become into motion. It was absolutely phenomenal. That night we had a party celebrating the publication of our book, and all 5 of the native Rapa Nui or Easter Islanders were at my home. They're friends of mine. And at the end of filming that day, National Geographic said to us, please, no photos, no video, no Facebook, nothing. This is absolutely under strict embargo. But I snuck my iPhone over to a friend of mine. I had about 30 seconds of, contraband video of the statue walking. And I wanted to show it to my friend from the island. And she watched the 30-second video several times. She was absolutely astonished, something she'd never seen before. And she said, yeah, that's walking. And then as she watched the video, she began to sing a song. And the song, she put her hands down to her sides like a moai, and she began to rock back and forth. And she sang a song. And I said, what's the song? And she said, Terry, it's the moai walking song. I said, what? You have a song? And she said, yes. We all learn it as kids. And I thought, wow, okay, the dumb anthropologist. Here, they have a song about moai walking. And here we go. Well, this was amazing because what it brought together was archaeology and living culture and memory from living culture in the most amazing way, something that archaeologists don't see very often. I want to show you the rest of the video. It goes for almost 3 minutes. You're going to see the statue walking, but edited into this is going to be 2 of the islanders singing the traditional song for moai walking.
mea kaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tuko iu, mea kaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tuko iu, mea kaha ere ere moai. Ko papa ahiro, ko papa kirangi moai. Tau aro o te ariki, ko papa ahiro, ko papa kirangi moai. Tau aro o te ariki. Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai. Ka mautero ngorongo ka tukoi were. 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 Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai. Me ma ori ori tukoi, me hakaha ere ere moai.
Again, that's Moai. That's a Moai walking, a multi-ton Moai walking. We were in a second session, not filmed by National Geographic. We were able to time the movement of walking a statue. We were able to move it about 100 yards in 40 minutes. We were able to move a 5-ton statue with 18 people, 4 on each side, 10 in the back. The work in the back is hard because you're trying to hold a statue up that is leaning forward. We were able to walk uphill, downhill. We were able to turn it around. We were able to do all the kinds of things that the ancient islanders would have done. This really requires kind of engineering genius rather than brute force, and it tells an important story about the island. We made the cover of National Geographic in July 2012, and it's been quite an adventure in sharing this research with the world and with science, and also with the native islanders whose history has often been portrayed as something catastrophic, when in fact they had a sustainable life on the island and they did a lot of amazing things. So thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to seeing you in person sometime. Thanks. Well, that was just amazing. Dr. Hunt, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and join us today. It makes me want to go to Easter Island. And kind of funny story, the other night on the news, they had a piece of, if you've ever been to the hut down on 6th Avenue or 4th Avenue, you've seen the big, well, now I know what it is. It's right here. It's a moai right in the front courtyard of the hut, and they have a mask around the face. So they're doing their social distancing there. Dr. Hunt, we do have a tradition within the Rotary Club of Tucson where we have a book that we ask you to sign to go in our Make Way for Books library. And I think we found absolutely the perfect book for you and your presentation. It's called 20 Fun Facts About Easter Island. So enjoy, and thank you very much for coming again. Dr. Hunt, one of the things we do at Rotary is some Rotary business for the next 20 minutes or so. So the first thing we do is we recognize some of our members that are celebrating birthdays, and we have 2 of them today. And the first is Michael Anderson. He's turning 75 on Wednesday. He's been a member of our club since 1981, 39 years in this club. His birthday, as I said, is on April the 8th. He was a club president in 2000-2001. He's the owner of We Buy Homes and a longtime supporter of our car show. And you may be wondering, that car show Corvette we give away every year, where does that come from? Well, Mike Anderson finds that car every year, so thank you for doing that. What is Mike's claim to fame for our Rotary Club? He came up with the Dream Home Project during his presidential year that raised $250,000. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael Anderson. Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you very much, President Bob, for doing these videos. These are truly difficult times. Who would have thought 6 weeks ago we'd be facing this? This is a milestone birthday for me, since I was born 75 years ago today on April 8th, 1945. In 1945, we were in the midst of World War II. We had rationing, we had polio. President Roosevelt died 4 days after I was born, and millions of our fathers, sons, and daughters were far from home, fighting to defend our way of life. Hundreds of thousands never came home to their loved ones. Many are buried in cemeteries throughout Europe. 70 million people died in World War II. So, here we are in the beautiful sunny desert of southern Arizona, arguably one of the best places on earth to be, and living with creature comforts unimaginable in 1945. We should thank God every day for our good fortune. I've never been a joiner. I made an exception. Joining Rotary, and more importantly, staying in Rotary, even though many times I felt I needed to resign, has been one of the best decisions of my entire life. You don't have to come to every meeting. I sure don't. I have 40 years of imperfect attendance. Nearly all of my cherished friends are here in this club, and if I had a good friend who wasn't, I got them to join. If you have a valued friend outside of Rotary, I say get them to join our club. You'll be doing them a great service, and you'll be giving your fellow members a gift with their membership. One of the secrets of staying in Rotary is to find your role in the club. Find that committee, that special talent that you're great at, or that project you want to advance, and make that your Rotary role. I want to remember 3 dear members who have passed, fellow club members. First, Brett Houston. Brett was the president the year before I was president. He and I mentored each other almost every day, helping each of us go through our presidency. I mentored Brett first. He mentored me second in preparing and doing the Dream Home Project, where we together had a big Dream Home project and raised $250,000 for our club. Sid Morse. Unfortunately, Brett sadly took his life. That was one of the lowest points in our club's history. Sid Morse, a dear friend and the husband of Faye, was on my board of directors, and Sid taught me about philanthropy. That was a big lesson which I've tried to carry forward. You don't have to give a lot. Just try to respond when somebody asks you to support a cause or something they're interested in. Finally, Hank Lomanak. What a sweetheart. Remember that? That's exactly right, Hank. Hank did 2 things. He introduced me to Rotary, and he taught me about walking. That's why today I walked so much over the last 40 years. I wore my knee out and am recovering now from total knee replacement. So I say to you, count your blessings, cherish and support our friends, stay in Rotary, introduce your friends to Rotary. If you don't already have one, find your Rotary role. Finally, pray for our country's president. God give him continued strength to guide us through these troubled times. Wash your hands, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
And our next birthday is Joe Pennington. He's been a member since 1985. His birthday was about a month ago on March the 1st. He's a Paul Harris +4, and he's also a member of the Paul Harris Society. You may not know what that is, but he basically gives Paul Harris $1,000 every year. As a senior in high school, he was introduced to Rotary at Tullahoma High School in Tennessee, and he went to a meeting as a guest of the school superintendent, and Rotary became part of his life at that very time. He's been a member of 3 other clubs around the country, and in our club, he's been the secretary on our board of directors, and he was a car show chair in 2011. He was in the Taos, New Mexico Rotary Club, where he learned how to ski. And this is his quote, not my quote. He said, skiing is the most fun you can have with your pants on. So take it for what it's worth. Please welcome Joe Pennington, and happy birthday.
President Bob, thank you for the introduction. First of all, I'd like to say, let's all stay safe and shelter in place. It's important that we maintain our health and do not infect anyone else. I also want to say a special thank you to my sponsor, the old turkey, Max Hahn. Celebrating my 35 years in the greatest Rotary Club in the world, the Rotary Club of Tucson, I am this year making a $1,000 contribution to Rotary International for the annual fund because President Bob has said that this is a priority. I'm also making an additional contribution to Rotary International Polio Plus so we can get more of Bill Gates' money. I wish everyone in the club a safe, healthy, and prosperous 2020.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We have another fantastic random act of kindness story that I want to share with you. So Ann Lancero, she joined the club in 2011. Her husband Lou is a family member of the club, and she has been connected to Rotary her entire life. She spent much of her career in healthcare management, so this crisis right now really hits home for her. She has a fabulous story, so please welcome Ann Lancero. This story is going to touch your heart.
I wanted to share with you another thing that we've done within the envelope was the idea of a kindness blessing bag. So my husband went ahead and along with myself got items to put into a blessing bag. Here it is. And we've put in different items where we could just hand them to someone if we came along a homeless person or someone in need. There's a pair of socks, some soap, toothbrush and toothpaste, various snacks, toilet paper, and a $10 bill. Thanks for having me today let me tell you about my blessing story. In today's world, we certainly need to be spreading as much kindness as possible. Thank you.
Ann Lancero, thank you very much. And honestly, that blessing bag thing, and I appreciate you giving me one of these. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna have it in my car, and I'm gonna find somebody to give this to. That's really an incredible thing that you're doing, along with Lou. So now, here we are. I thought we would, have some fun. That's what we wanna do. That's one of my #1 goals as a president. And we're going to cover something very serious right now, and it is the coronavirus pandemic. And as you know, Jerry Sullivan is our resident Rotarian stand-up comedian. He is not very good. He does not have a sense of timing. He does not smile at all, but he's still absolutely fantastic. After all, he gave me some beauties for meetings this year. Like this one for John Lewis. Hey, I used to be a banker, but then I lost interest. Or how about this one? All the toilets in New York's police stations have been stolen. Police have nothing to go on. And then for Margaret Higgins, England has no kidney bank, but it does have a Liverpool. And then this one is actually perfect for me. For those who get too big for their britches, they will be exposed in the end. All right, you get the point. This is gonna be brutal, but please welcome Jerry Sullivan, and trust me, we have set the bar very, very low, and we'll see if he can reach that low bar, so enjoy.
Thank you, President Bob. Well, it's been an interesting year so far. 2020 went viral faster than anyone could have imagined. The events of the past few weeks have been truly stunning. The spread of the coronavirus has created a gargantuan pandemic, but at the same time, a pandemic is taking place of equal size. First of all, people ask why they call it a novel coronavirus. Well, that's a long story, and we don't really have time for that today. Meanwhile, day 29 is without sports. I found a lady sitting on my couch yesterday. Apparently, she is my wife, and she seems very nice. I was told that a mask and gloves were enough to go safely to the supermarket. They lied. Everyone else had their clothes on. We are 3 weeks into this self-isolation, and it is really upsetting to witness my wife standing at the living room window crying. I feel for her and would love to let her into the house, but rules are rules. A teenager told his mother, "Mom, you always told me I wouldn't accomplish anything by lying in bed all day. But look at me now. I'm saving the world." I went to a bar just before the shutdown took effect and ordered a Corona, but I told the bartender to hold the virus. With nail salons, barber shops, hair salons, spas, and tanning places all closed, Tucsonans are having a rough time keeping up with appearances. It's about to get really ugly out there. In a show of diplomacy, the President of Mexico has reached out to President Trump. "Mr. President, please finish building that wall." Overseas in Europe, they have similar issues. In Germany, panic buying of sausage and cheese has resulted in their worst case scenario. Meanwhile, Finland has closed their borders. That means that no one will be crossing the finish line anytime soon. Italians have discovered the difference between the COVID-19 and Romeo and Juliet. One is the coronavirus and the other is a Verona crisis. It could very well be that some of you Rotarians will have to wait up to 14 days before you see if you get any of these puns. I am throwing a Rotary COVID-19 party this weekend. None of you are invited. In the meantime, stay well and keep your sense of humor.
Jerry, well, as bad as you are, you still hit it out of the park. And thanks for coming to do that. We needed a couple of, groans in our life right now. Well, on Tuesday of this week, it was Arizona Gives Day. And being that I was in philanthropy for much of my career, I only hope you support your own local charities. And if it happens to be Rotary, please consider supporting the Rotary Annual Fund. Otherwise, let me make one suggestion. Make Way for Books, one of our car show beneficiaries, is a fantastic organization. So hope you support your charities, and even though Giving Tuesday was a couple of days ago, I'm sure they'll still take your funds. So here we are to finish off today. Thanks to our guests, our VIP guests, and our visiting Rotarians. Thank you to our fantastic keynote speaker, Dr. Terry Hunt, and your fascinating work on Easter Island. Congratulations to our birthdays, Mike Anderson and Joe Pennington. Thank you, Ann Lancero, for sharing your beautiful random act of kindness story. And Jerry Sullivan, another stellar but boring performance. And to all of our guests out there in the online world, if you liked what you saw today, I hope you might consider joining our club. We need people like you, especially at a time like today. If you have questions, feel free to contact the Rotary office and our Executive Director, Darina York. Phone number there is 623-2281. And for next week, John Hudak, the President and CEO of Tucson Lifestyle Magazine. John is an expert in the field of marketing and spent much of his career with Jill Madden and Madden Media. While he will talk about why Tucson needs a magazine, he's also going to give some advice as to what should a small business owner do during this crazy time as it relates to marketing. So as we get to conclusion, let me finish with a quote and a toast. And the quote for today is the following: "Your current situation is giving you an opportunity to reevaluate what you want." And that was by Tashabi. And our toast? We toast all of our healthcare workers and first responders. I never thought we would ever say they are serving on the front lines of a war, but in today's environment, they are. Just like anyone in the military, during any armed conflict, these brave people are literally putting their lives on the line every day. We honor you and we thank you for all you are doing for us. Please stay safe. We are adjourned.